Good evening, Council. This is an issue that started actually, before I came back to work here in May of 2005. There was a council work session to discuss long-range water supply for the city. After that, a request for proposals was issued, a selection made, and on April of 2006, Council awarded the contract to Murray Smith and Associates. At the time that project started, they went to the COG and asked for a population forecast. They gave them a 2%, or the city staff gave them a 2% to start with. They went ahead and did the study using that parameter. We brought it was actually on a council agenda, about a year ago, when we realized, no, we're currently using 2.5%, and so we had that plan reworked at the 2.5%. As you well know, now Douglas County has adjusted that figure back potentially to 2%. So as you'll find later in the motion section when we get to that, that the motion is actually to adopt the plan, recognizing that the population forecasts are maybe slightly high. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris Huber and Phil Smith to make a short presentation on what the findings were for both the long-range water supply plan and the water treatment plant preliminary design report.
Thank you, Nikki, for that introduction, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for giving us this opportunity to make this presentation tonight. This will do. Again, I'm Chris Huber, Senior Vice President with Murray Smith and Associates, and to my right is Phil Smith, Founding Principal with Murray Smith and Associates, and we will give a brief presentation. These will be back to back. We've allowed some time at the end for discussions, but if something comes to mind right away as we're making the presentation, feel free to interrupt us. Briefly, we will talk about the long-range water supply plan for the city. We'll also talk about the water treatment plant water treatment facilities preliminary design report. And again, for discussion, and we can be interrupted if something again jumps out at you. The long-range supply plan, I'll talk about that. Phil's going to talk about the treatment plant. The scope of work looked at a 50-year planning horizon. Again, as Nikki said, we forecast the population served, and we've forecasted out to the year 2058. We looked at a key issue, and that's water rights on the North Umpqua and South Umpqua river basins. We identified water source alternatives. We analyzed the different supply sources, and we developed a recommended long-range water supply plan for the city that included implementation. This graphic, I think the key thing is the blue line represents water demand. Where we are now at about 10 to 12, those will vary. You see the line varies between the year 2000 and up to 2010. That reflects actual. The line going forward reflects the projections, and Nikki alluded to those. Again, we will go forward with those demands. The red line, as you can see here, the red line, on your left, my right, that is what your existing treatment plant can produce right now. And that's 12 million gallons a day, and that's peak supply. As your demands increase over time, you're going to need to increase that capacity. And we'll talk about that. What the key issue is, over time, how to keep ahead of demand and when you need to make the increments to increase your supply. Water rights are critical to water supply in the state, and it was a key issue that we looked at here. Your current supplies from the North Umpqua River, you have rights at the Winchester Water Treatment Plant right at Winchester, 20 million gallons a day. Those are adequate to the year about 2030. Beyond that, you're going to need additional supplies. Now, there may be opportunity for additional rights on the North Umpqua at Winchester, but right now there's no summer water available. In other words, at a reliability of 95% or better, there's no more water available. There may be the opportunity to acquire existing rights not being used on the North Umpqua and transfer those to the Winchester site for the city to use. We looked at water rights on the South Umpqua River Basin. Again, there are no summer rights available at that 95% reliability. So there may be, we looked at acquiring senior rights in significant quantities. That's not practical. The only way you're going to get water from the South Umpqua River is through a storage facility. So We looked at stored water from the Galesville Reservoir, and that really offers the city the best raw water source. We looked at a wide range of alternatives for water supply, and I'm just going to click down through those. Again, acquire the senior surface rights on the North Umpqua River Basin, transfer those to the Winchester Water Treatment Plant. Acquire senior water rights on the South Umpqua for future supply, and you can either pump those to the Winchester Water Treatment Plant or build a new water supply system. Acquire surface water rights and develop non-potable systems to replace existing rights. And again, that reduces your demand side pressures and thus reduces your need to meet those demands. And those could be irrigation, industrial water, processed water. We looked at developing local groundwater and also to develop those groundwater to augment flow in the North Umpqua River, and then you can again withdraw that at your treatment plant site. Looked at purchasing existing raw water storage from the Galesville Reservoir. To continue, though, the alternatives, construct a new raw water storage facility or participate in future raw water storage projects with others, develop aquifer storage and recovery systems. And those are systems by which you take water in the winter when you have it, you inject it in the ground, and then you withdraw that water during peak use periods, typically during the summer. It's being used quite a bit in certain parts of the United States. It's being used currently in the Portland metropolitan area and other parts of the state. So we looked at it and said, is there a possibility that it could be of value to the city of Roseburg? We also looked at implementing 2 demand-side reduction measures. One of those is to implement additional water conservation programs. The city has had water conservation programs for decades, and those have made an impact on water demands. And implement water recycling and water reuse. Again, you're not doing anything to your supply. What you're doing is you're reducing the amount of water needed on the demand side. All those alternatives were evaluated and screened, and from that process and through that process, we developed recommendations for the implementation of the long-term water supply. And the idea here is to focus on the least cost approach. The city has a significant investment in the treatment facilities at the Winchester Water Treatment Plant, and with existing upgrades, you can defer the development of additional supply quite some years. Current predictions, that could be year 2030, depending on what actual demands are. That could be sooner, it could be later. So the key recommendation here is to formally adopt this plan to guide water source development for the city over the next 50 or so years. Complete the recommended water right administrative actions at Winchester. Now, those are presently underway. Contract water rights holders on the North Umpqua River Basin to see if there are additional rights that are being unused right now that the city can acquire, and potentially acquire these senior rights and have them transferred so you can use them and withdraw at Winchester and treat that water and deliver it to the city. And Phil Smith will talk about the water treatment facilities preliminary design report. So implement the recommendations of that report. And there are some immediate improvements that need to be made. And then again, looking at expanding that plant from 12 million gallons a day to 18 million gallons a day. Complete a comprehensive water system master plan and capital improvement plan that focuses on the system that distributes the water. That plan is currently underway. Also complete a water management conservation plan. Those are mandated by the state of Oregon. And when you're required by Oregon Water Resources Department to complete that plan, that's when you should complete it. You'll need to await their action on that. Expand your water conservation program. The city has, again, existing programs. Those can be expanded. Develop non-potable water systems to reduce existing demands. And adopt the Galesville Reservoir project as the city's long-range second major source supply of water.